Alright, time to start chapter 5.
The quest continues.
In the
Take
land
it
of
away,
the
Patrick
vampires.
Stewart.
So it seems Pan has saved Gabriel once more. His arrival most fortuitous. Gabriel
It's
now
most
enters the
fortuitous.
Yeah,
outskirts
Sir,
of the
Sir
vampires'
Patrick, you actually forgot to read one.
Cold
Hey,
winter
I'm
has
Sir
hit
Patrick
this
Stewart
land,
here. I
Whatever the
read
fuck
how
I
I
want.
like.
carving out neighborhoods to warmer
He is one of
climes.
those narrators who
stubborn
could
enough
probably
to
get
stay
away with
have
it.
contended with the cold death that visits them each and every night, taking their loved ones away forever. The vampires thrive in the cold and
So like I
terrorize
said,
the living
interestingly
who
enough,
crave
vampires
warmth and
aren't the finale
companionship.
mooks here, which
This night,
They're like the
Again.
middle point. I think it's actually a surprisingly change of pace and a good, way to pace things out. Especially because the last Lords of Shadow doesn't take that much to get there.
for those who, are familiar with Castlevania, you'll probably recall that vampires are the ultimate foes of the Belmonts. Hell, the whip in its most powerful form is known as Vampire Killer for a reason. It was a vampire that started all the stuff, so of course it makes sense it ends with a vampire. But with this new timeline, it's both the case, but also not the case, weirdly enough. Apparently, vampires in this world are very, very, very powerful. How powerful? Well, they're apparently as powerful, or not, or possibly even more so than, well, the guy from downstairs.
In the meantime,
Only the time, Jova. For the time being, we have one last occasion where we find goblins, so this is going to be the last level when they show up.
So as you can imagine, the vampires will hang out in a place that's nice, cold, and devoid of the sun.
Of the sunlight, yes. Particularly near a village that bears a name that fans of the original series might know, which I will tell more later because it's actually mentioned later.
To paraphrase from Dawn Blue, we ate the sun. That much we know.
well, technically, wasn't it Barry Manilow that wrote the songs and for that?
Regardless, it's a
Oh,
Dawn Blue
you
movie.
again?
Let me check.
Seriously?
Oh, it's okay, Theo. He's just a playful little Kojima tyke who's having fun.
I'm gonna so...
Remember, Dio, that guy's
And
gonna
he
make
just
Metal
left
Gear.
us in an aerial combat, you piece of garbage.
We have a movie exhibition to go to, dude.
It's okay to forgive him, Tio. He's gonna later make Metal Gear Solid 1. It's gonna be great, I hear.
Maybe we should do that instead of stealing my stuff. What's so damn funny about it?
Gremlin Kojima is best Kojima.
Might as well carry from the previous part as a joke, because here's the interesting thing that I just found out from reading since we did the previous part. For little Nemo, Chuck Jones was approached and declined.
He's
So
like,
Chuck
yeah, I
Jones
got
didn't
better
even-
stuff to do.
So Chuck Jones didn't even get on that ride. He just took. Okay, I
Nope.
have
To be fair, Chuck Jones is more, akin to, fast-paced comedy, while Little Nemo
Well-
project was more sealed even that.
Not necessarily too.
Chuck Jones is capable of slower and more dramatic stuff. It's just
He
that
directed
he's
What's
most
Up for a Duck,
well-known for
too.
Looney Tunes.
True,
Was
but
that
it's still...
What was that, Pedro?
Oh,
He's also
well,
responsible for what?
he directed What's Up for a Duck. He directed the best adaptation of The Grinch. He was also.
But I do believe that, all those ones still manages to have something that Little Nemo did not have in terms of, that kind of fast pace. Remember, the thing that consecrated him is the Dober Boys, which is something that that would clearly clash in terms of mentality behind Little Nemo. So I guess someone more like Fritz Prelang would have worked better for the project.
That being said,
believe it or not, Chuck Jones did do some more serious stuff here and
he
there.
did. He did.
See, he could have done something like Little Nemo. It's just like I said, you know him best for Looney Tunes stuff, and kind of, I sort of get it. But he did do some other stuff, like, let me look at that.
We did see his version of Peter and the Wolf. He also did his own version of The Jungle Book. There's that.
Yeah, and this is the part in the development history where the description starts throwing out names at a rapid succession. They had drafts done by Chris Columbus, Mobius. Who the hell is Mobius? John Canemaker, Richard Martini, Richard Oughton was also hard to work on the screenplay at some point. Then they got some of the 9 old men to work on this bloody thing. Ken Anderson.
Wait. The 9 old. Okay, Siri. Okay, I have to wonder. Did it get to a point where every time somebody worked on this film but then quit, they left their contributions to the film and eventually, coddled it together into some weird Frankenstein monster, and it's like, this is what they presented to each newcomer?
Alright, when we're ready, Jova, go ahead.
There have been numerous sightings of the chupacabras in this region. This creature is not known to be deadly or malicious, merely a nuisance. I must get word back to the Brotherhood to advise my comrades to gather as much fairy blossom as they can. It is written that chupacabras are fascinated by anything to do with fairies, and the blossom is a good tactic to use to distract the pesky creature while retrieving anything it may so well want to take.
There we go.
Huh, that's actually
And yes,
pretty helpful.
the fucking thing starts playing you hot and cold as you're getting closer.
In the meantime, Job, I just found the answer to your question right here. I'll get to it. So you continue. Here you go. Frank Thomas and Oliver Johnston, who were basically the John Musker and Ron Clements of their time. And of course, the world famous Sherman Brothers were hired to write the songs. And here's the stinker, Jova. Little production was actually made until January of 1988.
Huh.
So basically, forgot the first. Let me actually see when it started. Forgot 1977 and 1988. They've basically just been doing nothing but playing a game of hot potato, Jova, basically.
So they held the project for a bit, pretty much tried to start it, but couldn't make it work, and it's like, here you go.
It's like this. See, I'm writing the movie. It's just too hard. Here, sure, you do it.
And then Shuri writes a bit, and then she's not doing it well enough, and then she gives the rest to Tio.
Yes.
Well, I proceed to instead transform into my own personal fanfiction, I guess.
Yes.
And then
No.
We're taking it away from him.
No. Remember, Tio. You already got.
Normal fanfiction, Shiri. I'm not gonna do that.
No. Remember, Tio. As you yourself said in our favorite stuff, you're already planned for hiring and compile hard to write to shit anime games in 10 days, as you put it.
Yeah, why not?
What's this normal fan fiction you speak of?
As in nose mat.
Well,
Okay, that.
Well, sure. How about this? Considering the creators of the Tangled series are admitted fans of the movie, I mean, you can kind of consider the Tangled series fan fiction. It is fiction made by fans. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have the usual.
Oh yeah, it is fan fiction, and it's really good fan fiction. And then sometimes we allow 50 Shades to happen,
But no, again, Pedro, generally the term is reserved for when it's a product that is generally done by the fans in a explicit, non-official way.
Sure.
So the Tango series manages to still be, attached to the original product, done by people who knew about the product and, officially sponsored by the Disney Corporation. So there is that.
So anyway, though, going back to the point, though, so literally, Little Nemo was essentially a group project of all these people across time, little by little, adding on a little bit.
Oh.
Wow, a group project. Of course it was going to go well.
And there it is, striking in the distance, the castle. And not just
Welcome
any
to
castle.
Castlevania.
Yes, but it's not just any specific castle. As the scrolls will tell more later, this used to be the residence of none other but Victor von Frankenstein.
Yeah, weirdly enough.
But more on him later as well. For the time being, we need to, if I recall correctly, just get to the proper village. Which I think the name will actually tell what its name is.
But yeah, seriously though, like, so who was this? Okay, have you read for pretty much everyone who was involved,
Nope.
or have we not yet
Not
gotten to
yet.
the sad sap? Who was
There you
the
go.
final ones?
The name of the village is Wygol. If you have scoured a bit behind the scenes, and on the actual official script of Castlevania 2, you will know that Wygol is the name of a village full of those people that in the official version that Konami released of the game are absolutely, not helpful in any kind of way. So it's a bit of an Easter
He
egg.
has not slept in days, not since the girl. The pain is etched on his face still, but in his soul,
Good narration,
only
Zobek.
hatred drives him.
Good narration.
We will not speak.
To be fair,
He must not know
this
I
is
have
also the
seen
point where we
everything,
actually meet
that I
again
have
with
followed
Zobek,
him
compare
this far.
notes, and start proceeding forward.
Uh-huh.
Go on.
The poor sap that actually stuck around and actually finished the movie was a guy called Masami Hata from
That name
TMS.
does not ring any bells to me.
Well, probably
Oh.
probably for a good
so they
reason.
pretty much TMS decided, okay, we can't find anyone strong enough to do it. We'll pick one of our own employees to do it. What an honor.
What lovely people in this place.
Gotta get
and
this out of the door, Jova. At some
Well,
point.
maybe we're having more luck in the cemetery, and well, there you have it. There's Zobek having prepared the territory, like he mentioned.
Hey, Zobek. This town is not the most friendly place.
Sadly, it's what we need. It's where we need to be.
So Ramirez, are you the last one?
Thank God that you are still among the living, my friend.
Unfortunately, that's not the same to be said for a lot of the Brotherhood warriors.
I have his power. What happened here?
I congratulate you on your victory. But these fellows were not so fortunate.
Yeah, we seem to have found a lot on the
Word
way.
is spread of our
Gotta
quest.
love the irony. The
vampire
Brotherhood
clan
are
have
being
slaughtered
cut
this
down by
entire
the very
village.
people who founded them.
They're expecting us.
We found the back end Zobek, that's all you need to know, Lives.
That abbey. I am told the abbot possesses an ancient relic that harnesses the power of the sun. It is said to be capable of burning vampires and reducing them to ashes. That relic protects the abbey and all who take refuge there. But the abbot has barricaded himself inside and filled the building with deadly traps to deter
Jesus.
visitors.
What a nice
After
guy.
years of isolation, some say he has been driven quite mad. He resides up there, in the tallest of the towers. If we could
What a
persuade
jerk.
him to give the relic to us,
And by persuade, I mean,
it is a
taken by
tremendous
force.
advantage over the vampires.
Because the poor fucker seems to be not really able to share his gift.
Mad or not. Damn him for not protecting.
Exactly,
that's-
what Gabriel said. Unfortunately, we don't have much time to prepare because we have a new enemy type, ghouls. Low-level enemy of the vampire clan.
Oh
These
yes, and they
enemies
will
are...
eat their own.
Well, yeah, that's what a ghoul is. That these enemies are assholes. They can regenerate their own health and produce poison just by eating corpses all over the place. Let's check them out a bit. Despite most people believing otherwise, ghouls are not undead creatures. In fact, their ancestors were human, but a diet of corpses and rotten flesh transformed them into horrible monsters that dwell in burial grounds and cemeteries. Ghouls usually live underground, but sometimes venture outside in small groups to scavenge for carrion. The vomit of a ghoul is only poisonous, but can be depleted using light magic. Also,
Funny.
something until dawn.
And Wendigo.
True, in Until Dawn there were more Wendigos, but the process is similar. The cool thing about it is that the grab attack has Gabriel literally exorcising the shit out of them with the combat cross. So it's pretty neat to actually just grab them and destroy like that. But the trick of this level is to... Yeah, Zobek will also help you, giving you a hand, in repelling them, but... Yeah, so what you need to do is to grab the statue of the cemetery and pulling it. But Zobek needs to actually give you a hand on that. There we go.
Come on, Patrick. Do your best, Patrick Star, and push!
Here's some interesting trivia also for you, Dwibs. Apparently, originally, Ian McKellen was actually considered to voice Zobek.
Yeah. So it went from being possibly Magneto to Professor X.
Let me check. There were also other people considered for Gabriel, but let me get to the proper list.
Ain't it funny how that works out?
In the meantime, Jova, guess I turned out. It finally released in Japan in July 15, 1989, and it was directly competing with Kiki's Delivery Service. So you can probably guess how that turned out.
Hold on. So you're telling me that it ended up competing with a film made by
Hayao
one of the
Miyazaki,
guys
yes.
who was originally working on Little Nemo itself.
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder which film won.
Why does that seem kind of poetic?
It is.
Essentially, Hayao Miyazaki got to fight the worst experience of his film career head on.
And as a result, the movie only grossed 0.9 billion yen on a 3 billion yen
Which is
budget.
really not budget. Down to it.
How did it overseas?
Well, the budget was 3 billion. It only grossed nearly a third of that. That's basically it.
That's what I mean. Too.
As for overseas, there are no numbers. It was considered a box office flop in the US as well. Oh, yeah, I just found it. Just found it. Let me just get it. Yeah. Its opening weekend in the United States, Nemo made about $400,000 with a total US gross of approximately $1.3 million. And if you convert the 3 billion yen, it's 35 million. So obviously, once again, not nearly enough. So it was a gigantic bomb all across the board.
And like Little Nemo, like I'm sure that there may be a cult fan base, but
There is.
the cult fan base is not exactly one of the loudest. Like, and from what I've heard, even people who are fans of the movie pretty much acknowledge that it's mainly either as a guilty pleasure or that they like it in spite of its very apparent flaws. Like, I have not seen any diehard fans of Little Nemo Adventures in Dreamland, the movie.
Well, that's because that movie is just a nothing movie. Nothing actually happens aside from shenanigans and weird, trippy acid sequences.
The only thing that you can gather from it are the animation and the voice cast, and even those can get you only so far.
This movie can essentially be established as Nemo gets to go to the circus. The end.
It's not even that. Then at the 2/3 mark, it becomes a defeat of the Dark Lord quest.
Again, does that even matter though? Because as far as we know, that was just a dream and not something he really did accomplish.
Yeah,
so...
that's the main reason why Miyazaki wasn't interested in working on the movie, because a lot of the movie takes place in a dream that you can argue doesn't even happen. So Miyazaki wasn't interested in that.
Like, give Nights into Dreams credit. That game pretty much implies that at some point the real world is actually getting affected by the dream
Alright,
world.
Dwibs, you're up next.
You are supposed to meet here to prepare for an assault on the castle. I have not seen anyone yet, so I'll rest in the mausoleum for the night. It's not safe here, so why am I resting there? Ghouls and vampires prowl the night for wayward souls, and I don't intend to be caught out in the open. The ghouls especially pose a serious problem as their vomit is highly poisonous, and I'm low on light magic. And why am I covered in sickle all of a sudden? Ah!
And now it's time to gain a new upgrade for the Combat Cross. Thankfully, there was another of the mausoleums of Gandolfi here.
I love how they programmed it to glow.
There we go. Our next upgrade is a stake. Very useful for vampires. The artisan who made the chain and hook tip for the combat cross, Randall Gandolfi, wanted to give the weapon even more options for hand-to-hand combat, especially against supernatural creatures of the night. And so he designed the stake attachment, which eventually gave the combat cross the nickname of Vampire Killer. I see what I did there. But we mostly use outside of combat for this particular purpose, to activate this mechanism that open doors. This is actually one of the more infamous mechanisms told by people who do not enjoy QTEs, because instead, like in God of War, we need to mash one button, we need to use a more rhythmical kind of thing. We need to, wait until the proper context of the button to press it. Alright, next up is to start entering the Abbey.
Below the Abbey, ready to face the evil confronting us. The abbot, Vincent Dorin, was once a good and kindly man who helped Wygol. But now he has become a devious coward who has holed himself up in the Abbey and rigged it with traps of
the dedication he has to rigging all these traps probably could have just been spent on helping people.
Night has fallen outside.
Like, how much time and energy did you waste on these traps?
As much as when you actually get to see him, he's not clearly the type of, doing acrobatic stuff.
If we are to succeed in acquiring the
Taking some
relic
notes from
that
Sadako
the
Hojo
Abbot
on that.
this will help us greatly in defeating the vampiric
Or maybe
horde
she took
later.
lessons from him if this takes place in the past of that.
Well, not much time to do Windows, so let's move on. Also, more 60 frames. Yay. Because we're about to meet also the major forces of the vampiric faction. And it's usually, something you should look up for. This is a bit of a problem.
Bit of
So
an
you're going to say the
infestation
real
there.
life.
Oh no! They attacked the frame rate!
I love the jingle as you actually mean it. Tom Tom.
So yes, we face it finally against the franchise's
In this
most
case,
iconic villains.
lesser vampires. I will get to the bestiary entry in a second. There you go. A vampire can be born from many different creatures. The ceremony itself involves the exchange of blood between the host and the soon-to-be vampire. However, vampirism has to be accepted by the recipient, so it remains exclusive to intelligent creatures. The lowest-ranked vampires usually take the form of creatures with a bat-like appearance. Over the centuries, as they become more powerful, vampires appear more human-like and are able to transform at will from hideous creatures into human form. One can usually ascertain the power of a vampire by its appearance, and any vampires that appear totally human are usually incredibly powerful and extremely dangerous. These particular vampire warriors show the signs of being recently turned and cannot hide the fact that they are low-level creatures bent to the will of a vampire lord. So essentially, again, the more mooks of the bunch. Yes, Joel?
About that whole, you have to accept being a vampire thing, kind of gets contradicted in the Mirror sequel, doesn't it?
Okay, not necessarily, but when the time comes, time comes, repropose to me, and I will mention it.
I'll just say this: you know who probably did not want to become a creature of the night, but more on that later.
I get what you mean, Jova, now, but I'll tell you when the time comes. Alright, let's get the contraption. Yes, the problem is that I cannot do that when the monsters are around.
Has Patrick Stewart really been in many other games that aren't licensed, I wonder?
Let me check. I think he might have been in one or two.
Again, I wouldn't be surprised if he was in an X-Men game if it was based off of the movies or something. But,
No, if I recall correctly, he actually wasn't in the X-Men movie, in X-Men video games for some reason. Oh, maybe the one that takes place between movie 2 and 3. I don't remember.
So, is this like the only game she's... Well,
I'm checking. There we go. No, actually, it's been in quite a lot of stuff. All right, let me see.
That's the thing too. Like Patrick Stewart now, he doesn't say no to anything. So
I know, but I'm talking. Anyway, there you go. Not counting Star Trek and X-Men stuff, there was Lands of Lore: The Throne of Chaos in 1994. I don't even know what that is. Forgotten Realms Demon Stone, which is based on D&D, actually. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, true, but I completely forgot his character, to be honest. The narrator from Lego Universe, the narrator from The Sims Medieval. This game, and himself in Family Guy: The Quest for Stuff. Then everything else is pretty much just either very minor stuff
He's an American dad, isn't he?
or Star Trek and X-Men. No, I'm just talking about a Family Guy video game.
Oh, I thought you meant Patrick Stewart's voice career as a whole.
No, just for the video game, since Joe asked me. So for the time being, there you go. I managed to make in time while Zobek I had to fend off. Zobek is technically invincible, he cannot be properly healed by the enemies, so you can take your sweetest time.
Funnily
It's
enough,
standard NPC immunity, Jova, don't worry.
That bastard Abbott has protected himself well. We need 2 keys to get out of here.
Trying to... There we go.
and hey, give him credit. He's an NPC who does help you in fights.
There we go. We need to get, like Zobek mentioned, we need to get 2 keys. So we need to find 2 paths and hopefully survive from the traps. Starting with an obviously collapsing ceiling. Shit.
Typical trap. Oh, thanks, Zobek.
Even Gabriel manages to do that. These people are ripped.
I can't hold it. Hurry.
Zobek's
Remember-
got AIDS as well, so dang.
Remember also the narration. Gabriel hasn't slept in days.
And yet he's still doing all of this.
Quick.
Like,
Move forward and hold
lack
the
of
next
sleep
slab.
hurts the muscles.
Hold on much longer! Get out of here!
Squelch.
There we go.
Oh, I thought it was gonna get squished.
Thankfully, no. But it was a close one.
There is one.
It reminded me a lot of that scene in Highlander 2 where Ramirez is kind of doing a similar thing that Patrick Stewart just
Except he
did.
got squelched.
Yeah, in that case, he did that. I wonder if it was actually intentional. These kind of
Which is-
references.
Well, remember, Terry, he's not played by Sean Connery. The character looks exactly like Ramirez.
You know what I think happened in
And
that
may I
context?
remind you that was a very anticlimactic death, given how much of a big deal Ramirez coming back
Yeah.
to life was
You know what I
supposed
think
to
happened?
be.
What?
I think Sean Connery just realised what film he was in, and so I wanted to leave, so they had to kill him off like that.
Honestly, it kind of does feel like that.
I
given
wouldn't be
how, again,
surprised. The main beat, I think it's Michael Ironside.
Yeah,
was
Michael
it?
Ironside.
Yeah, he did mention in an interview where he knew what kind of movie he was in, so he acted like he was not giving a single shit, and so they actually tried to stop him.
and
Spoilers,
did
they
ever?
didn't. No.
Oh, they did.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Russell McKay had his hands tied.
Pretty much.
With
It was
what?
a complete mess.
Oh yeah. Oh God, Highlander 2. Despite the fact that they are doing their best to try to make everybody forget the original cut exists, the original cut is still very well remembered over the Renegade cut, a fan-made cut that eventually became the official cut.
There's a lot of really sad things about that. The plot, some of the acting, to be honest.
Okay,
And
sure.
how music-wise, in terms of movies, that's like Stuart Copeland's biggest claim to fame.
There you go. In these
Wait,
cases,
wait,
you
wait.
need Zobek to
God.
actually hold the crowbar.
Go! Cross over now!
And there you go. And at some point, ask him to drop it, so instead we can use it to actually move.
Yes,
But,
Jova? Sorry,
yeah,
go.
go on, Jova.
You seriously just reminded me that Stuart Copeland was involved with that movie.
Yeah, he was the composer for that film.
Yikes.
And that was 7 years before Spyro.
So
Alright, Jim.
okay, Jim. So which do you think was the better or worse score? The one of Bat or the one of Spyro into the Dragonfly?
Okay,
Honestly,
okay.
Jova, the scoring after the driveway is probably the best thing about it.
It still is not what I would call a good Spyro bit.
Okay. The only thing holding back Enter the Dragonfly's music is the final boss. But everything else that was fine. Well, more so considering Copeland wasn't the only guy working on it. It was other people that were uncredited. But in terms of the music for for Highlander 2. There are a couple of themes that I remember, but honestly not very much.
Alright, this next area allows us to play some tricks, because now we have to think with portals. Apparently, one of the traps of the abbott is to place an actual magical barrier that impedes our progress. So we need to think smart and try to, you know, outpass it.
Alright.
If I recall correctly, sorry, I was just checking if it was a secret behind the wall. The next scroll, if I recall correctly, is about the solution of the puzzle, so I will just read it for myself. Yeah, there it is.
How did you get in here?
That cursed abbott, man of God, using this hellish magic. Somehow it is the device and the portal that keeps sending me back are connected, but I cannot figure how. To be fair, this puzzle starts to be a bit more difficult compared to the previous ones that you faced. It's all about the perspective. Memorize what the actual structure of this courtyard is, and then you will need to move the teleport device, you know, in a specific location so you can actually use it to bypass the magical barrier. Anyway, next call, Jova, why not?
I heard that Gandalf went in search of the vampire that took his beloved daughter. This was what motivated him to create the combat cross and its upgrade relics in the first place. I passed a mausoleum earlier that could be housing one of the cross upgrades, but the weapon itself is held in the secret underground vaults of the Brotherhood. But the relic has no purpose or value for me. I wonder if we will ever see it used in combat. I wonder if the prophecy will ever come to pass, or if we will ever discover what happened to Gandalf. Just play Castlevania Lament of Innocence, pal.
Pretty much. This particular backstory is pretty much lifted straight from Event of Innocence, where Gandolfi forges the vampire killer in order to assist the first of the Belmont. I remember again if it's Lucius, I think.
I'm curious to you.
I forgot. In order to rescue his daughter from a villain, from a vampire, Walter Bernhardt.
I'm curious to you. Which do you prefer as the Castlevania origin tale? The one of Sonia Belmont or the one of Leon Belmont?
Leon, that's his name. Honestly, I prefer Leon, mostly because Lament of Innocence has a bit of an advantage, you know, in terms of presentation alone.
Definitely. You know, again, it's funny. Part of the reason that they made Sonia Belmont's venture non-canon, given what happens in this timeline, but to say that would be to spoil the twist of this.
There you go.
So not yet.
Delivering this particular puzzle acts kind of like of a compass. Again, based on the landmarks of the place, you need to place the exit of the teleport, while Zobek will most likely, you know, fend off the enemies. You just need to clean up a bit the area and then try to move the portal into the location that you prefer.
Slash. Ooh, that made quite a splash.
Sadly, we don't get holy hand grenades. Well, we did something close to that, I suppose.
So, do you have a favorite level in this game?
Favorite level? Well, there are a couple, to be honest. The game is pretty varied, actually, in terms of location, color palette, type of monster distribution. So there is something for everyone. If I had to pick any one favorite, okay, it's a bit tough, I suppose, but I'm gonna go with maybe some. Okay, there is one level we haven't seen yet. Actually, we might actually. I will mention this when it actually arrived. There is actually one of my favorites. There you go. Then you have to ask.
Go through to the other side.
Yes, I'm trying. There you need to have Zobek hold while you get here instead, where we get, as if I recall correctly, an extra gem. Actually, no, it's another scroll. Glimpse.
I must be out of my mind. How else would I have accepted a mission like this? Infiltrating the Abbey, alone, to recover some mysterious relic? Insane! This place is full of fiendish traps and indescribable creatures intent on...
Yeah.
It's amazing how you made it past the first trap.
That's what happened. He didn't make it past the first trap.
No, Dibs. Apparently he did to have gotten this far.
Or what if he got nicked in the back by the trap on the way past?
Well, the way that trap works is by squashing you, so...
Yeah, exactly. He was almost completely out, but it squished his foot, and so he died from the blood loss.
Also, there was another section where I got 60 frames per second.
I don't hear any objections, so
I just don't care.
It
Moving on.
technically could work, but it's kind
Well, I mean,
of
he's
a
dead,
stretch.
so it doesn't really matter. So.
Okay, not here, not here. There.
Yeah.
We should be good to go. Go ahead, Zobek. Hold it, please. Oh, maybe not. Well, I forgot, sorry. It's been a while since I recorded.
Choose wisely, young Skiven.
Well, sadly, I don't have much to... I need to think it also for later because there's another horde. It's still good extra experience points. Anyway, let me mention something quickly in the meantime. I thought wrong. I don't think there was someone else being casted, or at least someone documented to be casted before Robert Alaya as Gabriel. But the game actually had a bit of a development cycle. The pitch was actually given first, first asked by Konami. But in order to not compete with Castlevania Judgment, in case I forgot, the fighting game on the Nintendo Wii, drawn with the character artist as the mangaka from Death Note and Bakuman. In order to not compete with that, they actually tried to do the same thing that Kojima did with Metal Gear Solid 5, pass it up with a, title not attached to the franchise name. Then, at the end of 2007, Konami's executives almost cancelled the entire project because they were not convinced a darker and edgier tone that the game was trying to go for, actually would have convinced them.
Wait, I'm sorry. Darker and edgier, Castlevania had already had plenty of games that had gore and blood in it. Like, how do they think it could get even darker, especially with one of the bloodiest Castlevania games, Castlevania Bloodlines?
If the main character was swearing all the time.
However, one of the game producers and writers, David Cox, the guy that I mentioned before, that was responsible for writing basically alone the sequel, basically decided, in order to make his point come across, fly over to Konami's US HQ to show them the tech demo that his team had created. And after skimming through the newest progress reports, they had executives decide to not only continue production, but grant the developers more creative freedom and attach Kojima to the project, which led to the complete overhaul of the title's protagonist, because back then it was supposed to be still Simon. So that's pretty much, that's a interesting fact. But anyway, tuning instead for the next part, where we continue the voyage through the Abbey, and hopefully the abbot at the end will be persuaded to give us the gift. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.